right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning. Thank you for joining this month's Worksoft webinar, New Dimensions in Test Automation, Explore Worksoft's latest advancements. I'm Austin Chandler, Senior Content Manager at Worksoft, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. We'll answer questions at the end of our presentation, so please feel free to use the questions feature to submit one. If we don't get to your question, we will email you a response. Today, Worksoft VP of Engineering Brian Smith and Director of Product Development Anand Kameshwaran will showcase some of the exciting new capabilities of the Worksoft platform and provide some insights and practical tips for a smooth transition and how to use these new features and take full advantage of them. This presentation is going to be recorded, and a link to the on-demand session will be available for anyone who's unable to attend or anyone who is here right now or wants to just share or review this information. Due to a large number of participants, lines are muted. Now I'll go ahead and turn things over to Brian and AK.
All right, Brian, if you can advance the slide, please. Thank you. So just want to review our agenda first. So first item that I want to we will cover is a new release cadence that we are instituting this year to help provide more clarity around our roadmap and to make it easier to make upgrade and migration decisions when our customers are doing their own planning. We have also some things we want to talk about with the move to automators mode for Core Certify. And finally, we will wrap up with a review of what is coming out for our next major release, version 14 of the Connective Automated Platform. And next slide, please. Yes, so in 2024, we are launching a new release cadence. So I want to explain sort of what to expect with our new release cadence going forward. And so, we are now doing a new major release, version 14, as an upgrade from version 12. And, our intent around the major releases is to do one, every 1 to 2 years, but that is, really sort of based on the features that we build and what are the needs of the market. We don't want to just make major releases all of the time, make sure that there's time to consume and do so when it makes sense. However, that has been largely, how Worksoft has done our releases historically, and we will continue to do that around our major releases. I would say the bigger change that we are making this year is that we will also have 2 types of releases, what we call early adopter releases as well as GAs. Now, to be very clear, both GA releases and our early adopter releases are fully tested, fully supported, and production ready. However, with the early adopter releases, that is when we will be introducing new features, new capabilities. So, those may have some impact from a planning perspective, or they may change some workflows. So, as opposed to our GA releases, where we will primarily focus on, bug fixes, stability, as well as minor updates to features that we released as part of the early adopter release, right? That gives us a chance to gather feedback on those new capabilities, let people test out with the latest and greatest, and then, have pre-built into our release schedule the idea of bringing in some feedback when a new feature is released and, being able to provide some of those updates or tweaks around those new features for the overall GA release. So, if your deployment strategy is to always have the latest and greatest, or that you have some new capability, new features, or new integrations that, in particular, that you need for your organization, you will probably want to start adopting for the early adopter releases. Meanwhile, if you have a more conservative strategy and kind of want to deploy more for the long term and only do upgrades or migrations on a more infrequent basis, you'll probably want to align to those overall GA releases. At the same time, this also will help provide for a very predictable schedule. As another path, it may be grab the early adopter to test out those new features in your test environment, and then when the GA comes out, you can roll that up into production. Manage your needs in your environment as is appropriate, and be able to plan, in advance for when these changes will occur. Now, in addition to that, we will continue to do monthly patches. So, as issues are discovered on a recurring basis, we will be releasing those patches once a month, to address any defects or other things that are discovered. And we will also continue to issue hot fixes as needed when there is a very high priority issue or something that is, immediately impacting the business. One last point that I do want to make, you may notice that as I talk about the release cadence, we're not breaking it down by any product, by certify versus CTM or others. And that is because along with this release cadence, we will be releasing the entire platform at the same time. So there will no longer be sort of staggered updates of the various pieces, but we are aligning the release schedule kind of across our capabilities, whether it be process intelligence, core automation, or production automation. All of these releases will now be coordinated at the same time. Again, greatly simplifying, the planning that is needed, when we want to do an upgrade or are looking for a new capability. Anyway, I think with that, Brian, I'd like to turn it over to you for our next section, and take it away.
That sounds great. Thanks, AK. I'm going to be talking about automators mode here today, and some changes that are coming along with it. So introduced in 2018, automators mode is includes a middle tier of services that sit between the certified client and the certified database. And we introduced this for security reasons and to improve performance for remote users. We found people in WAN environments really struggled to use certify over high latency connections. Over time, we've added a number of features into automators mode that did not make it into classic mode, and we'll talk about some of those here in just a few minutes. As always, enhancements in certify are aimed at improving test automation, focusing on efficiency, reliability, and improvement in the user experience. Some of these features are not available in other tools, and so this positions certify as a more powerful and user-friendly tool for automation needs. Some of the advancements that we have in automators mode, and again, I'll touch on these in a bit more detail in subsequent slides, are improvements in the way that processes get edited and executed. To me, this is probably one of the most important usability improvements that we've made in certify in a long time. You now have the ability in automators mode, and in fact, this feature has been out now for several years. You have the ability to edit a test and execute the test at the same time. So as you're stepping through the test, step, and you see something that needs to be changed, in the flow of the test, you can simply add steps into the test and continue executing from there. Reset the execution pointer to a spot previous, reassign variable values. All of this that you normally would have in the execution dialog, you have in the edit window itself, which is a major change for us. On the execution engine side, we've added enhancements that include more actions, more fail-safe features to prevent you from getting stuck in tests, and more control over how tests run for basically a more flexible and robust automation. We improved last year, we released a major enhancement for our solution manager integration. And so for those customers, this is very interesting. In Solution Manager, where you create test plans and test packages, and typically you would start all of your executions from the Solution Manager side, you now have the ability to synchronize those test packages into certify and see the list of test packages there and select and run them from the certify side, then push results back into Solman. So it eliminates the need to start executions from within Solman itself. When Automators mode was first introduced, again, it's been quite a while, one of the early features that we added was an export-import capability that allows you to export from one certified database, one instance, and import someplace else. This long-standing feature now is used by several of our customers. Altogether, Automators mode provides a set of capabilities that distinguish us from our competition and just showcases our commitment to providing innovative test solutions. As AK mentioned, Certify 14 is scheduled for release here in April, right next month. And this version of Certify is going to support Automators mode only. We've been running parallel code bases for a number of years, and it's time for us to stop that. It just creates double maintenance for us. And all new deployments that happen on Automators mode, and that's been the case for a while. What that means is Certify 12.1.2308, which was released last fall, is the final version that's going to support classic mode. We'll continue to support that version of software with bug fixes, no enhancements, but bug fixes through April of next year, so 1 year after Certify 14 is released. I know a number of customers, looked at Automators mode previously and stayed away from it. Now is the time for all of you to come back and embrace this new version. It's also the case that classic mode and Automators mode can run side by side. What that means is you can, on an individual machine where Certify is installed, you can turn on Automators mode, and on a different machine, classic mode can be turned on. And so you can see what the behavior is just to gain confidence and understand, what are those new capabilities that we're going to talk about in a minute for you to embrace. And this gives you time to understand that during your transition. So this is a major event for Worksoft, right? Sunsetting classic mode. And if I expect there will be 1 or 2 questions on this at the end of the webinar. Then just briefly touching again on these improvements that I mentioned, and I should have done screenshots here of the actual screen from within Certify that shows you where this new debugging capability shows up. It's in the process edit window. It's next to step parameters at the bottom right. You can, basically do all of the things that you would normally be able to do with execution and do it while you're there in the process edit window. So if you need to add a step, you can. If you need to, change the variable that's used in the step, you can, right? And then you can simply re-execute those steps. So major usability improvement that we added to the product. This has been out now for 3 or 4 years. And so if you're not taking advantage of this will dramatically simplify how long it takes to build and refine and harden tests before you turn them over to production. And it's especially true for long tests, where it takes you a while to get the application back into the state that it was before, right? So you stop an execution, go edit your test, and you have to get back to the place you were. This makes it, kind of eliminates all that back and forth and resetting of context. On the execution side, we added a feature called Screenshot History, and this Certify will automatically take screenshots leading up to a failed step. So even if your test does not have a screenshot step in it, we will, if you have a failed step, we will keep track of, let's say, the 3 or 4 steps that lead up to this, and we'll attach screenshots to those so that you can see what was the state of the application leading up to the point where you had your failure. Maybe your application was in the wrong state, maybe you were on the wrong page, something like that. And so it really helps in kind of tracking down problems. We added an action timeout at the step level, so it prevents tests from becoming stuck forever. And this threshold probably is measured in minutes. We saw some cases where customers were running tests overnight, so unattended tests, and they would get blocked based on some behavior in the application and come in the morning, and so all of your nightly tests that were running on a scheduled basis would be jammed up behind this one that was blocking things. And so this prevents that kind of blockage from taking place. We changed the way that execute process steps work. Historically, if you call an execute process in the on-false path, would not actually follow that path unless we couldn't find the target process or the target record set in the step itself. So this provides much more intuitive control. When the execute process step fails, you can take that on-false path, and so it'll happen the way that most users expect it to. And that was a change that was long overdue. You have the ability also to get step details from the previous step that just executed. Some customers were asking for more details. Look in our documentation, you'll see the 5 or 6 new things that you can get back from the previously executed step. There's a capability that we added called dynamic relearn. We added that again several years ago. We think it's going to be mostly useful for those customers that are going through an ECC to S4 transition where they're doing a lift and shift. And when they get to S4, they want to be in a browser, right? So as part of that, all of the SAP GUI tests that you have can still run against an S4 system. But for those that really want to transition into a browser experience, we have capabilities that allow us to convert those SAP GUI tests into web GUI tests. And part of that leverages our dynamic relearn capability to make sure that the new web objects have robust attribute strings. And then finally, we added some additional features for date, time, and math operations just for increased functionality. Again, I mentioned export import capability that's been around for a long time that allows us to transfer assets between certified databases. One of the limitations is you need to be on the same version of certify so that the schemas match between the 2 instances. And again, our solution manager test package improvements, allowing you to synchronize your test packages from solution manager into certify, to run tests from within certify, and to push test results back into the test package itself. So status gets updated back into the test package. Some enhancements that other people are asking for that we'll need new APIs from SAP in order to support that would be for us to generate reports at the end of the execution and allow us to push those reports back into the test package as well for evidence. We've been working with SAP as part of the development of this feature. In fact, SAP uses it internally, but there's still some gaps in terms of what customers are asking for. And beyond this, we're also looking at extending this capability so that we would be able to use CTM to schedule jobs and run tests overnight and still push those results back into Solution Manager. Again, features that our customers are asking for and that we're actively considering. Finally, we made some improved performance for remote users. That was a major reason for creating Automators mode in the first place. Classic mode certify makes lots of calls to the database and it's somewhat chatty, and that leads to performance issues in environments where users are far away from the database and have high latency, let's say working from home back in the day. So when we added Automators mode, we do very blocky reads from the database now, eliminate all that chattiness. And so performance is much, much better for remote users. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to AK to talk about Platform 14.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. So I think the one of the biggest parts for Platform 14 is the addition of single sign-on support. So while we had historically had some support for OpenID as a third-party provider, that we have now implemented support for multiple third-party providers across the entire platform. This does not mean that you must adopt single sign-on or that you need to be able to integrate with a third-party provider. What you will see us as now talking about for the Worksoft provider, you will still be able to use internal authentication against our portal, and still be able to manage users and groups in that fashion. However, it is a fairly large trend across the industry that security concerns and others are, being treated as first-class citizens even during initial development, and this has been a requirement for many of our customers from a security and policy perspective. So we are now all through the portal. You will be able to use either the Worksoft-based authentication, integrate sort of at a tenant level with OpenID authentication providers, as well as be able to use LDAP. Along with this change, the management of users and groups is now all centralized within the Worksoft portal. So, historically, you would manage your users for CTM or process intelligence within the portal, and Certify had a separate set of users. So, starting with Platform 14, all of that user and group management is being moved into the portal, and so we've also built, the additional import and export type of capabilities that may be necessary. Some of our early adopters are finding, we have, a couple of Certify environments, and we need to reconcile those different users. So the utilities and capabilities for importing from, different Certify environments and bringing them in for central management, are all a part of the Platform 14. Also, sort of along the ease of use, the ease of migration, and the ease of upgrades, we're also enabling you to choose, which are the interfaces that you want to install at the, at install time. So that again, should make any upgrade or update, lower risk. You don't have to worry about things being changed, but you'll have control over what is actually being done. The next piece has been, especially for our customers that like to integrate Worksoft as part of their CI/CD pipeline. So for portal users up till now, you've generally done those integrations, and we have a very full feature set of APIs, primarily on CTM, for enabling these integrations with test management solutions or at other parts of your CI/CD pipeline. You were using a username and password for that overall authentication. The same trends that are driving, the requirements for single sign-on, even in early development and QA tools, are also driving a lack of, changes in how we want to do that sort of authentication for integrations and communications between systems. So we've built basically API-based authentication tokens. So these are persistent tokens that can be used for these integration use cases. The other piece which comes up, which is if you do implement single sign-on, most organizations have that single sign-on provider set up to require multi-factor authentication. So that is obviously problematic when we talk about an integration, as there is no user to say pick up the device and see the code or anything along those lines, as well as the fact if you are executing Certify from the command line, there's a good chance you're doing that again without somebody in front of the screen. So the API tokens, in addition to helping with the integration use cases, also provide a secure way to manage logins and authentication that is needed in a non-interactive fashion. Again, prime examples are going to be from an integration standpoint or executing Certify on the command line. I think one other piece kind of worth noting as we have been deploying the first early adopter release of 14.0 with our customers is to give some thought to the test accounts and the accounts that you're using around the tests. It's probably, in general, a good idea to work with your security team to get test accounts that do not require device-based multi-factor authentication. At the end of the day, it's kind of difficult to automate picking up a physical phone, opening an app, and getting a code. So that is something, as you find yourselves, with the security teams telling you we need to integrate with single sign-on, and we would like you to use multi-factor authentication. It is probably good to see, as I think is sort of a secure test best practice, about creating appropriate accounts that do not require the multi-factor, or if they do require multi-factor, to work with the security teams to see if there are options other than device-based, things such as an email-based authentication, or a secondary token, things that don't require you to pick up a phone. Again, if those are really the issues that are driven by the third-party SSO provider that we integrate with, but this can, if you haven't, if it's been planned for, then it's kind of quick and easy to handle. If it hasn't been planned for, then it is oftentimes a surprise. So just wanted to highlight there. If you find yourself where security is like you must implement SSO and start using these standard accounts, you probably want to start talking to them about the methods of MFA and what they use. I think another little tweak within Certify, also enabling the customization of the date and type formats. So it will do the localization as it did by default, but if those those local defaults, say for French or Hebrew, are not the display that you ultimately need, you'll now be able to override those formats and specify what is needed. Next slide, please, Brian. All right. So with respect to business capture, we have tried to put some quality of life and ease of use capability. So capture does allow your business users to quickly capture what they do for sharing with test automators and turning into your end-to-end regression suites and other pieces along those lines. And we want to make life as easy as possible for our business users. So it doesn't represent a whole lot of extra work. They can just do what they do today, and we can capture that knowledge. So now, we can, within the settings, automatically name the activities as we go through the capture. Also, when we are uploading the captures and want to share that information from a process intelligence standpoint, you can now explicitly just go ahead and point it to that business process at that point in time. And finally, we have made some enhancements in the description fields that you use in capture, right? So that this information can be carried through into auto documentation, and as well as provide greater context and better understanding in what you've captured for the downstream consumers. Next slide, please, Brian.
It's a little slow to. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. Anyway, so moving on now to process intelligence. We've made several UI enhancements, to present the relevant information and make it very easy to get a better 360-degree view of your current process landscape. So the overall business processes are now being tracked within the reference tables. When we're doing the direct process visualization itself, and on that tab, we can go ahead and very quickly be able to see sort of the background information, as well as immediately visit the history for those processes. Again, in getting a better understanding of where the data and the information that is being used to generate the views is coming from, you can take a look in at the activity summary, and we've added that grouping based upon the data source. So again, you can understand what are the sources of information that are being utilized to present this view and enable you to make those decisions on what to automate next, or where are the low-hanging fruit. Finally, as we have discovered different users certainly have different areas in process intelligence in terms of what they would focus on. Whereas maybe a line of business lead, um, you know, versus say like just a straight process analysis group. Um, so we are able to now filter based upon the roles, and then ultimately again make it easier for each person who is interacting with process intelligence to have the information and the pieces that they need presented to them clearly and directly, and kind of eliminate any other information that may not be their focus or their interest. So really just trying to drive a bit of quality of use and a better overall experience, letting you immediately hone in on the vital information for you, regardless of your role. And next slide, please. All right, and I think finally, as is on platform 14, continued to make some improvements for continuous testing manager. And this is within the realm of our lights out testing. So we have added the ability to copy and paste an existing suite. Along with its schedule. So if you need to, run multiple regressions and then they only need a small change in between one versus another, and you wish to individually track it, it now becomes a lot quicker and easier to, just go ahead and make a copy. Or, if you're trying to troubleshoot an end-to-end suite, again, you can make a nice clean copy, make your changes there to understand what is going on, and then be able to recreate, or once you have addressed it, be able to fix the end-to-end suite. Sort of along those lines, right? When you have particularly long-running suites with lots of processes, some customers they'll run 200 processes as a part of a long-running, couple-day regression suite. So we've been putting more detailed troubleshooting information into the spy window. So when you're kind of stuck there watching what's going on, and when there are problems, you have more of the relevant information that you need right there. So once you've kind of observed what is the behavior in that spy window, you have all the relevant information that you need to either address the issue or know what was actually causing that overall problem. And finally, as another little kind of tweak, we had previously had just kind of a high-level summary that was put out with the notifications within CTM. We had several customers desire a little bit more detail, similar to what had been there with Execution Manager, and so we built out more detailed set of notifications that gave you kind of the direct link to the individual processes. Sort of mirroring what the previous experience had been. As I guess a frustrating but slightly pleasant surprise was that the high-level summary had also been adopted at this point. So we basically brought back both worlds, and so have reintroduced sort of that quick and dirty high-level summary over the processes when you get notifications regarding the suite, in addition to the very detailed information that was available in terms of seeing the result of each individual process and be able to click to see those overall results. Several of these pieces, are also things that we are going to continue to build on as we move forward with 14.1 later on in the year. And so we will be continuing to improve sort of the quality of life and the user experience within CTM, to enable that real testing at scale, and that you can build these suites quicker and more easily, and just get all of your testing done, no matter how large the environment or how big your regressions actually are. And I think that is the major highlights for 14.0. Brian, if you want to go on. So I think at this point, would like to open it up for any questions.
Yeah, we do have a couple questions today. I've got one that says, we are planning to upgrade soon. Can we jump from version 11 to version 14?
That answer is yes, right? You can certainly upgrade to any version of Certified, but the one that we want you to move to is going to be, what's recent or current. So not a problem upgrading from 11 to 14. Depending on the size of your database, we did reorganize the way that we manage images within the database. And so there's a, one step in the process that might be new for you if you haven't done this in a while. And it will take a little bit longer to kind of reorganize all of those screenshots that you've captured in your tests into other tables. So the database upgrade piece may take a little longer than you're used to, but not a problem at all.
Great. A follow-up to that question is the current execution manager version 10 that we use, we know this is not in support. The execution manager user doing remote execution needs admin access on the remote machine to do interactive login for test execution. Is the admin access still the requirement for version 12 and version 14?
So that would be no. Execution Manager, as you know, is sunsetted and is replaced by Continuous Testing Manager, CTM. And the way that we launch user sessions and logins, right, remote desktop sessions, has changed. And we no longer require admin capabilities for those logins.
Great. Well, that's all of our questions for today. Thanks, Brian, and thanks, AK. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. We hope that you gained some insights that you can apply to your platform use and your test automation strategies. We will send out the recording of this session within the next day or two. And yeah, thanks for joining us, and be on the lookout for our next webinar. And we hope to see you again soon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for attending.
Thank you.